Okay, and we are live. And let's click live on Instagram as well. We'll give it a couple minutes, or a couple seconds, I should say. Yep, and I think we're officially live everywhere. Hi, Carlos.
Hey, Nini.
All right, Cinco de Mayo, and here we are. We're dressed up par, and we're coming here with a special episode for everybody. Dressed up like funny ones. We're color coordinating today, right, Carlos?
That we are.
That we are. And this was all Carlos' idea. I just want to say it up front. But I love it. I feel like mine keeps going away. I have actually a pretty big top, like Carlos, but mine is not showing. So, oh well. But today we're going to be coming in with a special Q&A session that we want to answer live to all of you guys watching. I still think the audio is too loud, so let me reduce it a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear as well. So this is today's episode, live Q&A to answer questions that you guys have been submitting to us. We have collected them, and we're excited to kind of go over all those questions. Maybe we have covered in other episodes, but today we're going to kind of like summarize everything and bring it to you guys in one lump sum. And if you are watching now and you want to ask specific questions, please send it to us on the comment section of whatever session location you were watching from, being Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just send it over and we'll be answering live to you. Yay! So as usual, per tradition, we're going to do the myth of the day. And today, to kind of be a part with the theme of the Cinco de Mayo and all of our Spanish heritage audience. So the myth is you cannot buy a house without having a social security number. And I'll let Carlos answer to this one since this is his realm. So Frank.
No, that is not true. You can buy with an ITIN. It's an individual tax identification number. Obviously, the down payment requirement, it's a little bit more than your regular conventional or FHA.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely not. You can buy with ITIN.
Yes, and the loan is a little specific. So if you guys are in the situation where you don't necessarily have the social security number yet, but you do have your ITIN and you're working with using that, we can more than likely help you. Every situation is different, but there are special programs available for you guys with ITIN numbers. So just note that. So that's our myth of the day, and we're gonna get right into the questions. Which we have a few to go through. So I'm going to go here and open the ones that we have received from before. And again, if you guys are watching this and you have your own specific question, please send it in the comment section. I will be monitoring those boxes here. And then if I see a question coming through, I'll make sure to answer. Okay, so the first one that we got is, what's the very first thing I should do if I want to buy a house? So, Carlos, I'll let you answer that.
Get pre-approved.
Yes. Call Carlos.
Yes, call Carlos. That's the first thing you should do.
Yeah. And if you don't have Carlos' numbers, call Nini. But you should have both of our numbers right there in the bottom, right? Yep. First step is really either doing your buyer consultation with your realtor. So that way they can connect you with a person that they trust for the lending side, or go straight to a lender and get started with your pre-approval, because that is the very first step for you to understand how close or not you are to buying at that time. And if you are, what are the terms that you might be able to qualify for, loan type, credit score, what interest rate you can get. I have a little visitor. Look at that. We've got the visitor. Yay! So that's our first question. Second question, do I really need to have 20% down in order to buy a house?
No, absolutely not. There are loan options that will allow you to come in at 0%, like USDA and VA. There are down payment assistance programs that will allow you to, to only bring $1,000 to closing. So there's a lot of options. So yeah, absolutely not. 20% is not the norm, and it might not even make sense to put the 20%. I
That's
think we discussed this in a previous episode where it might make sense to do renovations, and or play with the rate, all that stuff. I think we
pay
talked
down the
about
rate
that.
instead of putting more money down, right? Because sometimes the difference on monthly payment is not going to be substantial enough to make a difference for that buyer.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors that come into play when it comes to that. But the answer to simplify, no, you do not need it,
Hmm.
and it might not be the best option, even if you are able to. And we discuss that with you on a one-to-one basis.
Yep.
So next question: how do I figure it out how much house I can afford?
Call
So,
Carlos.
oh, Carlos. I mean, there's a math behind it that the lenders will
There,
use.
there is, yes, there is a math, but yeah, normally, when the client calls me, I'll go through their financial situation, ask them some questions, figure out how much they make, what kind of debt they're carrying, and then based on that, we will go over different options with the client to see, like, because sometimes people can afford more than they really want to spend also, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's something that we go through during the pre-screen.
that's right. That's right. So every situation is different, but
Yep.
for sure. Okay, next question that we got. What's the difference between being pre-approved and pre-qualified? Another one from your side of things.
Yeah. When are yours going to start? No, I'm kidding.
I know, right?
No, so the difference is pre-qual is when you it's just kind of like a verbal, numbers type of thing.
Yeah.
When you're pre-approved, it's when you've done verifications of employment. You looked at the bank statements. You calculated the debt to income. You ran underwriting. So all that stuff would come with a pre-approval and not a pre-qual.
Yeah, and I do get this quite often, and actually have clients come to me with pre-qualifications that says pre-approval, and they think I got a pre-approval. Look, it says pre-approved, and they don't understand the difference is not necessarily on the wording, because someone can give you a letter that says pre-approved and is not a pre-approval, is a pre-qualification.
Yep.
It's really all about if you were just asked questions and you never submitted documentation and your credit score was not run as a hard pull, and there was no verification of employment, and they didn't send you for underwriting, if not none of this more complicated, more complex application has happened, that means you only have a pre-qualification. That's like, this easy way. If you go online and you answer a couple questions and you got a letter, that's a pre-qualification, and it's a good start, but it's worthless when it comes to actually buying a house, because to put an offer on a property, we need an actual pre-approval letter.
Yep.
And for that, you need to actually submit everything and have everything verified by a lender.
That is correct.
Your credit score will be ran as a hard pull, and we will hit you a couple points, but it is required, because I know a lot of people ask that question too. Alrighty. So can I buy a house if I have a student loans? You can. The answer is yes, but I'll let him explain it.
Yes, the answer is yes. You can buy a house with student loans. Depends on how, like if your student loans are deferred or you're making the payments, it's going to depend on kind of what number we're going to use for calculating, to towards your DTI to know what you can qualify for and what you can't qualify for.
That's right. That's right. And can you explain a little bit about the how much it can be used? I know there's like a percentage that you guys may not use from the debt from the actual student loan.
Right. So depending on the program you're going with, it could be either a 0.5% or a whole percent that's used for calculating purposes. When it comes to the DTI, when you're either at zero or deferment, that's kind of how that's treated. If there's a payment on it, then that's the number that we'll use that comes up on your credit.
Gotcha. Okay, so how long does the home buying process actually take? Maybe I can answer this one.
Help me out. Come on, Nini, help me out.
Yes, I mean, there's so many variables on this one, right? The first one being what loan type you actually qualified for, because some loan types may require a little more time than other loan types. But I would say
Yep.
overall, on a nutshell, like on average, it's about 30 days. 30 days is what you can expect. That's doable for most loan types.
Yep.
If your loan type is a government-backed loan, it could take up to 45, if not more, depending on the details of the loan. If you have a conventional loan without like an appraisal, it could be as quickly as 2 weeks. So it really varies depending on the specific situation, but overall, 30 days.
Yeah, I would say so. And then if you're going, the creative financing side, then of course, that's going to be a little bit longer, obviously,
Yeah.
because those loans take a little bit more time to get done.
Yeah, for sure. That was an easy one. Alrighty. So what's included in a monthly mortgage payment?
So that depends on how much money you put down. But usually it's your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and your PMI, if you have it.
Yes. And someone was posting here on the comment section, they were saying, can I pay my taxes by myself outside of mortgage?
Yes. So depending on the program, yes, you can. It's called waiving escrows. So you can pay your taxes and insurance outside of your mortgage.
Okay. Alrighty. So that the answer is yes. So I guess it depends on the institution, or you think any institution will allow for that?
No, it depends on the situation and the program that you're going with.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Next question. What are closing costs and who pays them? Well, I can start that and you can finish, okay? So
Sounds
closing costs is basically all the fees that are going to be related to your purchase, being lender fees, which would be the bank you're working with, but also the taxes for transferring the ownership from the seller to you as the buyer. So we have something called the transfer tax. We also have recording fees that are within the county, township, and the state of Pennsylvania. You have your title insurance fees. You have your escrow fees. There's so many fees that could be in there, but they all together combine to create what you call your closing costs. And the closing costs are paid for by the buyer. The seller also has closing costs of their own, but they're not going to be as extensive as on the buying side because the buying side has the lender involvement. If there's no lender involvement, then of course it's a little less. But with a lender, there's all these that I just mentioned.
Yep. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head on that one. Yeah, you have your escrows, your appraisal, your underwriting processing fees on the lending side, and then you have all your title fees. And if you're paying any side of the transaction or anything like that, then like any commissions or anything, then yes,
that would be
and those
additional.
will also come out on your closing cost.
Oh, just had another question come up. So it is in right of commission. So who pays for commissions? And that is a good question. Nowadays, standard, if you have a listing agent and you are the seller, you pay for the seller commission. If you are a buyer and you have a buyer's agent, you're supposed to pay for your buyer's agent commission. But through negotiation in real estate, everything can be added or removed, right? So customarily, what happens is that the buyer will negotiate with the seller that the seller will pay for the buyer's agent commissions. So, and that has been pretty standard throughout the years, right? But any situation in particular could change. So if the buyer wants to offer to pay for their own buyer's agent commissions, that could be something that they can do. And then the same thing goes with the seller. The seller can pay for all agents' commissions. So nothing is set other than you pay for your buyer's agent commission per agreement, seller pays for the listing agent's commission. But everything can be negotiated through an agreement of sale. So just so you guys know. Alrighty, moving on. What credit score do I need to qualify for a mortgage? That's you.
So again, it depends on the program. Some programs are gonna have, like if you're going VA, you really don't have a minimum credit score required. FHA, you can go with as low as a 580, and conventional, you can go as low as a 620. If you're going with like down payment assistance programs or anything like that, then those are different. Those are going to have different requirements depending on the program.
I would say if you are going for the assistant programs, you might want to stay definitely above 620 for the county programs for first-time home buyer. And then there are some other specific ones like PHFA, for example, that will require the 660. So the higher the better. And for conventional loans, I think you mentioned that like you're supposed to be on the 720 plus. So,
yeah, 700 plus is going to get you better terms when it comes to interest rates and when it comes to private mortgage insurance and that kind of stuff.
Correct. So 580 at the very, very minimum, but that doesn't get you much. 620 ideally or higher.
Yes.
Alrighty. Can I get help with my down payment? Yes, you can. Let's do it like, ay. Yes, you can. So there are a lot of different first-time home buyer grants, going in Pennsylvania. There are some seasonal ones. There are some that are always available, and then they are coming from either the county or the state or individual institutions like the PHFA. So there are definitely programs available that will help you minimize your down payment. On top of that, we also can negotiate something called the seller's assistance, and again, that's a negotiation piece, not guaranteed, but you can negotiate with the seller to ask for the seller to pay for a portion of your closing costs. And there is a different caps for different types of loan that you qualify for. So if you are going with a conventional, you're capped at 3%. If you're putting more than 10% down, then you can go up to 6%, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
On a conventional. And then VA technically is 4.5. Is it 4.5 or 4? But it can be much
VA
higher.
is weird, because the seller can pay your credit cards and all that stuff at closing. So VA is a little bit different.
I would say 6% standard, but technically can be more. And then for FHA, USDA is 6% as well of the purchase price that you can ask, up to, I should say. And then again, that's negotiated with the seller. So it's nothing guaranteed and it's on a case-by-case basis, but it can definitely be negotiated on top of any grants that you may qualify for.
Yes, and you can stack the grants too, depending on the program.
Yeah. So if you qualify for 2 different grants, some of them allow you to, double dip. So you can actually really reduce your down payment, down payment closing costs.
Yep.
To purchase the home. Okay. Can I use my tax refund as part of my down payment?
Absolutely.
Yes. That's why we wait for tax season.
Absolutely.
Another reason why springtime, it's such a high, busy season of the year for buyers, because a lot of people are waiting for those tax returns to come in so they can, add up to their funds to buy a home. So yes, you definitely
absolutely can. One thing I wanted to correct that I didn't say. 10 to 25% down is 6%, but if you do 25% or more, you can go 9% on the seller's assist.
Oh,
conventional.
Wow. I wish you could negotiate that much, but hey, that's good to know. 6% is already tough enough. Imagine that.
It is.
But I didn't know that. That's pretty good to know. I think someone was just sending here as well about the 401k. Can I use my 401k to pay down my closing costs to purchase a home? I know for sure that's a yes. Do you want to give a little more insight in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can either borrow from your 401k if you'd like, and that's not counted against you when it comes to the DTI. And then you can also withdraw funds from the 401k to help you with your closing fees.
Gotcha.
And to do that, if you're going to borrow, you don't need anything. If you're going to take it out, you have to show your contract and your closing cost sheet to the employer. Normally, they ask for those 2 documents in order to process the withdrawal.
Gotcha. That's good to know.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're getting more in my realm, I guess. So should I look at homes online before I am pre-approved? And yes, you should definitely search for homes online. Shopping online, it doesn't take any effort per se. You're going to learn more about what is available out there, but also learn about what you're looking for, understanding your needs. And the more you know that, the better it's going to be for you to talk to your realtor and give them as much insight as possible so they can help you start looking at homes that really, really fit that criteria that is important to you and your family. So I'll say yes, starting line is great. And then you definitely want to get an approval before we start actually touring homes, because that is very important. And I'm going to say why is important too, because I feel like people don't understand. It's not just to know, yes, you can qualify to buy a house. So a lot of people can. It's really to understand the terms of your ability to purchase. So if you are qualifying for an FHA home, there are homes that cannot be purchased with an FHA loan. So I'm not going to be wasting your time and having you fall in love with a house that can only be sold with a conventional loan if you are buying with FHA. So that's why it's so important to know that ahead of time. The loan type does really dictate the type of property we're going for. Same thing with a USDA, for example. That's a very good example. If you are buying with a USDA loan, which it is an agricultural loan type, you're limited on the areas where you can actually shop at. Which means I'm not going to be showing you a home in Harrisburg City if you are using USDA, because USDA cannot be used in the cities. So very important to get your pre-approval ahead of time. Next question. How many houses should I see before choosing one? As many as it takes. I mean, the more you see, the better it is. I feel like everybody should at least, see more than just one house.
Right,
but
right.
Plenty of clients that throughout the years that saw one house and just knew that was the one for them.
They fell in love and they're like, all right, this is mine. And
if it checks the boxes, I mean, if you are happy with it, that's why looking online is so important too ahead of time, because you're already going to see like this is what's available right now. And then when you go to actually look at them, you see one and you're like, I love it. If you love it and that's the perfect house and all the boxes are checked, why waste more time, right? So I don't feel like it's an error per se not to look at more than one home. But if you're not certain, if your heart didn't melt when you walked in the house, if you didn't get the butterflies, then yes, we should definitely continue to look. The market is a little bit cutthroat, so we don't want to waste too much time, too many days, right? So if you see a today that you love, and you're just wanting to see one more just because you want to say you saw more than one, if you wait 3 days, that one house that you actually love might not be there. So
especially in this market.
So yes, we can definitely see more than one, ideally quickly, and then so you can make a decision quickly and not miss out on the properties that actually sparkle your interest. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What should I be looking for when touring a home? Yay, that's for me too.
Yay, I get a break.
So when you're going through a property, there's many things you should be looking at. First of all, checking your boxes. That should be a priority. Everything should be kind of meeting your desires and your needs for your family. But also look for, red flags. Look for windows. Are they double pane, single pane? Because that's going to be later on something that's going to increase your bill if it is a single pane old window, right? Something to consider. You want to look up to the ceilings. I know sometimes you get mesmerized with the house itself. People forget to look up, and looking up will tell you a lot. So look for any stains, any signs of possible leaks, being the plumbing or the roof. So make sure you're looking up and checking on those things. Also, basement can tell you a lot of things. Go in the basement. I know some people are scared of going in basements, but go in the basement and check for any cracks, moisture, things that could be a potential sign of structural issues. I would say any sort of crack that it has a displacement, meaning it's kind of like not flush, or it's not a fine line hair crack. It's actual crack that is kind of like opening it up. That's the one want to be very cautious about. We're going to see, especially in existing older homes, many different types of crackling or fine line hair cracks. Those are normal. Those are settlement cracks. They happen. It's an older home. It's going to be, moving throughout the years, so it happens. But we don't want to see displacement. Keep that in mind. Also, if there is an access to the attic, go in there, check it. Does the wood look like it has moisture signs? Check for termites. I'm not a termite specialist, neither is going to be the buyer, but we can check for signs of, if the wood has been kind of chipped away, kind of,
Right. Yeah. You can see the signs.
Yeah, you can get a pen and just hit it on it. If it starts like powdering it, that means termite might be in there. Signs of like those white powder, those are the powder bees on the wood. That's another thing to keep an eye for. But if all of that looks okay, that's good. Turn on the water, see how long it takes for the water to heat it up. That's a good sign that the heat's working properly for the water heater. Check age of everything. Check age of your water heater. Check the age of your HVAC, age of the roof, which sometimes is disclosed, sometimes it's not. But that's something you can try to figure it out. So all those things. I mean, there's a lot outside of the house. Also cracks. Same thing with wood. If it's raw. Peeling paint, that's a big one. I mean, that's a big one for financing as well. That's why sometimes we have issues with certain homes not going VA or USDA or FHA. It's because of peeling paint on the outside, which is prone to happen. Some paints are not great quality, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a lead-based paint from 1978 or prior. But any loan that requires, that they're going to be looking at any paint. Even if it's just paint from last year that got dried out and it's crackling, that's something that's going to be taken care of. So all of that, things that we can check. So yeah, long answer for a short question, but I think it's important. Okay, next question. What's more important, location or square footage? Location. And I should step back. It depends on what you're looking for, right? What's important to you and your family, and maybe what's your strategy with buying that house as well.
Yeah, what's your exit strategy too?
Yeah, what's your exact, that's what I meant, the exit strategy. So if you are planning on selling at some point, like this is not your forever home, which a lot of first-time home buyers are not going to be. So you should keep that in the back of your head, like I might up having to sell this house. So let's think about this. So location would be very important. Maybe sometimes yet more important than square footage, because any house with any square footage will sell if it's in a great location. So location, I think it's always number one. But for your family, for your needs, maybe location might not be the most important thing. You're looking for space. You're looking for, the layout being what fits your family needs. So that's a very personal question or response for each person. I'll say overall location. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, you want to make sure, even if make sure your family's safe. You know what I mean? So location matters.
For sure. Yeah, safety, a good school district, and then it's gonna resell when you're ready to put that in market again. So
yep,
definitely.
Or rent well.
Yeah, or rent well. Next question. What's a red flag during a home tour or inspection? I think I pretty much covered that with what I said on the walkthrough. So I think same things. If you see those items, like displacement of the cracks that you're looking at, any stains, any signs of, powder bee or termite on the wood, because those could be very, very expensive things that might have to be taken care of, right? So when you dealing with plumbing and roof and water, like in the house, termite can be pretty expensive too, depending how extensive the termite is. So it can be pretty bad, especially on a structure of the home. The other thing that I didn't mention is electrical. You can check the electrical panel. Does it look very old, or is this something that was updated within the last few years? Your real estate agent should be able to kind of tell. If not, find a new one or call me. Call me. But the panel, it's important. If it's a 100 amp panel, it might be okay if the house is small. But if it's a 2,000 square feet home, you should not have a 100 amp panel, right? That's not going to support the needs of the home. So you need to be updated. Some panels have been banned because of fire hazards, like the Federal Pacific panels. So when your realtor is walking through with you, they should be able to see that and let you know, hey, we're going to have to change the panel, and that's going to be another $2,000 right there.
Right.
Mind. And even if it's not a requirement from the loan, you should still consider changing it just for the safety of a family, So knob and tube wiring, it could still be live in some properties that are older. Knob and tube, it's a very big deal. It can definitely cause fires. Like it's the older type of wiring. It's very, very bad. No financing will accept that. I think even conventional financing is giving a hard time on knob and tube wiring nowadays. So if there's any signs of a knob and tube that might be active, you should definitely take that into account in choosing that property or not. And if you do see it during a home inspection, that should be number one on your list to request to be redone, removed, replaced with current wiring, because that's a big no-no. So yeah, any of those things, plumbing, electrical, roofing, your HVAC, and crackling, like actual foundation issues that are very visible. Those are the must-dos for sure.
That was a lot.
A lot. Making offers. Let's get into that one. So what's a strong offer in a competitive market? That's me and you, Carlos, because we can both tap on this. But we did an episode about this, actually.
We did, yes.
Yeah. And to make it simple, higher offer.
Yep.
No appraisal or an appraisal gap amount that you can offer. Yep. I hate doing this, but you could remove your contingency on inspections. If you don't want to remove it, you can put a gap amount saying, hey, seller, I'm not going to ask for repairs that are less than X amount. So we can do that if you don't want to remove it, which I think is more recommended. Right. Then you can start offering to pay things for the seller, right? You can
tax,
commission for the buyer agent. So, and that's, those things are going to probably, up your closing costs, but those are all things that you can do to make your offer stronger. And also things that don't need to cost money, like, hey, simple asking a question to the seller. When do you want to close? What works best for you, seller?
Yeah,
and then,
timelines.
Yeah. Do you need time after closing to remain in the property to move into your new house? Maybe give them what's called a rent back option for free for 2 weeks. So those things that can be definitely placed in the offer to make it more appealing to that seller. Anything else that you can think of?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything.
Yeah. And I mean, having a very thorough pre-approval with your lender like Carlos will have you basically underwritten. That way we can, if what the seller is looking for is a quick settlement, we can make it happen if we have you already fully underwritten ahead of time. Okay, I think that's good. So next question. Can I offer below asking? Yes, you can. But no.
Will it get accepted?
That's the right question. So yes, you can definitely offer below asking anytime, every time, right? It's just a matter of, is it the right call for getting that house in that market that you're in? Right now, the answer would be no, because we are in a very competitive market. And I would say it depends on the house too. Like if
I was gonna say, yeah, it depends, because like if the property's been on the market for a while, if it was sitting there for a while, sometimes you can, instead of asking for seller's assist, you can just ask for a lower price.
Correct. Yeah. So
or vice versa.
Case by case situation for sure. So if the house is being sitting, or like if it's a special type of home, for example, I have a listing that is a short sale. So yes, you definitely want to offer lower, because the bank may or may not, counter or accept a lower offer. We don't know what that number is until they receive it. So every house is going to be different. But overall, in this market, with the market the way it is, I would say not the best time. But yes, you can offer. I don't know if it's going to work out to get the house accepted or the offer accepted. One more here. So can I back out of my offer if it's accepted? Yes, that's the answer. Yes, but there are some things that you need to take into consideration. And also the reason why for backing out will make a difference. So when you get on the contract and you signed a contract, the seller signed a contract, now you are in a legal obligation to purchase that home. That's what the contract is for. You have the right to buy, and the seller is going to sell to you only. No more showings are going to be done. For that reason, is a commitment, right? So there's something called the earnest money deposit. that is given from the buyer to the seller's agent brokerage, not to the seller, not in Pennsylvania. And that earnest money deposit is basically the buyer's skin in the game. It's what they're willing to show to say, hey, I want to buy this house. So if a buyer decides to just back out of a deal, which they can at any time for any reason, they could stand to lose the deposit. If it is for no reason that is protected in the contract, then yes, the buyer is going to lose the deposit and they can terminate the contract at any time. If it is because of any of the terms of the contract not being fulfilled or not agreed upon by both parties, then no, then the buyer is protected and the earnest money is going to be returned to the buyer. So that would be your home inspection, if you have a home inspection contingency, your appraisal, and then your financing contingency. So if for some reason you do not qualify, or you received a much higher interest rate than you originally were told, and now the monthly payments don't make sense, that falls under that too. If the appraisal comes back too low and you don't want to pay the difference, and the seller doesn't want to accept that, you can back out. If the inspection is bad and the seller doesn't want to agree to repair or change, give you credit or whatever, you can back out as well. So those protect your deposit. But if you just look at me as your agent and say, I just saw this other house and I want that house now because I like it, then you're going to lose your deposit. But yes, you can back out anytime. It just depends, on whether you're going to keep your deposit or not.
How much you're willing to pay to back out.
Yes. Yeah, and depending on some of the deposits, you could stand to lose a few $1,000s. So,
absolutely.
Take into consideration for sure. And I think we might have time for one more question.
All right.
So let's see here. What happens after I close? Who gives me the keys? That's an interesting question. So closing day is, that 30-day period-ish that we mentioned. That would be when you sign your documents, you pay your remainder dues for your closing costs. And then that's also the day you become the new owner and you get the keys at the table, either directly from the sellers or from your agent if they picked up the key ahead of time. But you do get your keys the same day of closing, the same day you're signing your documents.
Once the money's transferred, the keys are transferred.
Yep, exactly. Once everything is finalized, everybody got their dues and you paid your dues, that's it. You're the homeowner, you get the keys. You can move in same day. Some people don't know that, like, oh, when do I get my keys after close? And it's right away. Like as soon as you sign it, that's it. The house is yours. Unless, of course, different terms were agreed upon. But it's rule of thumb, it's right there and then at the closing.
For the most part.
For the most part, yeah. And I think that's it. That was a boatload of questions. Wow. I don't think I see anything else on the comment section, so I think we answered all the questions there. Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think it was good. It was a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was kind of like a lump sum of everything that we have spoke about before, which is kind of...
it was cool because it was a lot of the things that we had covered already, and people can just go back and watch that episode directly and get all the details we talked about on that episode.
Yes. So this was good. Casas and Carnitas, it's a wrap. Our live Q&A here to you guys. Yeah. It's too hard, but yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is going to be available for you to watch later on as well. So if you didn't catch it from the beginning, don't stress it. We're going to have it available on our YouTube and Facebook pages. So everyone, have a happy Cinco de Mayo. And don't drink and drive. Do have some margaritas for me. See you guys. Have a good one.
Till next one.
Until the next time.